In 2017, after decades of intricate negotiations that mirrored the very political machinations within its sprawling pages, the television adaptation of one of the most beloved fantasy series of all time, Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time, was finally announced. Now, with the threads of Series 3 fully woven and scrutinised, a clear consensus is forming. The show is not just getting better, it's gaining momentum. Today, the Brothers of Time, Louis and I, delve into the data, critical responses to decipher this evolving narrative. For the wheel weaves as the wheel wills. Let the journey begin.
All right, Louis, let's jump into it. Today we're diving deep into the world of The Wheel of Time, a show that, let's be honest, had a rather turbulent start. So season 1 left many fans sort of shaking their heads, questioning if the magic of Robert Jordan's epic series could be truly translated to the screen. But as we journey through seasons 2 and season 3, a question keeps coming up. Is the show actually getting better? So Lou, what's your initial take on the show's trajectory?
Well, to look at that, we need to look at the hard data, and we'll have a little look at what the critics have said over time, over these 3 seasons. Based on IMDB ratings, season 1 was kind of mixed reviews, fluctuating a little bit. Some scores were higher, some less high. Seasons 2 and 3 definitely gone up from 7s. There were definitely more 8s in season 2, at the odd 9. And we're seeing consistently with season 3 that it's mainly 8s with more 9s than in season 2.
So episode 4 was absolutely amazing, wasn't it? That was a 9.4 for episode 4, which is my favourite episode as well.
Yeah. Look at critic reviews. What was episode 4 again? That's in the waste, isn't it? When they go through the rings.
They're looking forward to go back.
Oh, yeah. So in terms of the critic reviews, season 1 met with some criticism about the pacing of the show, also how kind of thick the mythology is around it, that they maybe didn't penetrate that for a new audience. And there was even some talk about CGI not being quite up to the mark, which surprises me.
The tropes at the end were pretty weak, weren't they? Yeah, pretty bad.
Yeah, they were actually. And personally, season 1, liked it, but I've been enjoying this myself more as the seasons have gone on. So that's not exactly, I'm not much of a critic, but a quote from Roger Ebert goes like this, who didn't like it quite so much in season 1, say, Prime Video's The Wheel of Time finally comes into its own with season 3. So you kind of get from that you maybe didn't like season 2 that much either, but loves a bit of season 3. So why do we think that season 1 perhaps wasn't everybody's cup of tea?
I hope The Wheel of Time gets rebooked for season 4, but one of the downfalls of other fantasy shows and seasons is the endings could be quite weak. And sometimes because the source material hasn't been finished, like in the Game of Thrones. So actually, season 1 being the weaker season is, I guess, disappointing because you don't get that momentum. But ultimately, if it's getting better, I think that's hopefully a good thing. But I think, as you said, as part of what the kind of critics were sort of showing us, that the pacing was quite rushed, and they really did move quickly from the 2 rivers to the eye of the world, super fast, and that was a little bit confusing, as you said. And
they kind of had to do that though, didn't they? Because it's a new series, people coming to this for the first time, a new audience, Prime Video wouldn't know of that, and you've got such a lot to get through. The Eye of the World is a massive book, and you meet all these new characters for the first time. They had to make space.
No, I think it's fair. That's fair. So the pacing was rushed, but I guess like you say, they had to do it. They've only got 8 episodes per season. I think they've only got 8 seasons is the plan. So to get through 14, 15 books is impressive. And you have to move fast. They've also, this really pisses the fans off. So they've made some relatively big deviations for some characters. For example, Perrin's wife. He doesn't have a wife in the books, but in the first episode, Perrin kills his wife. And that was why. And Layla. And I think the showrunners explained it as to try and give Perrin this tension at the beginning of his story arc, which he gets quite easily in the books, but they didn't have time to do it. So killing the wife made sense, but it really, really annoyed people. Moraine and Siobhan being in a relationship, I think annoyed people. Some people don't like seeing diverse about on the screen. I do actually think if you read some of the online comments, if you go through on IMDb as well, you can go through the written comments. And you could tell the book fans were really annoyed because you get a 1 out of 10 and they've really upset. So a lot of people found that the deviations annoying, and they also had the actor who played Matt Barney, I can't remember his surname. He left before filming ended, which meant they had to change what they were going to do with him. So he didn't go to the Eye of the World, which he does in the books. So again, that is another deviation, and kind of is not much they can do with it. And also COVID happened. So they had this the final couple of episodes were absolutely rushed. The CGI was poor, as you said. So I think really season 1 was challenging. The last episode, I think, had a score of 6.5, which is pretty bad on IMDb, whereas the rest of the season they've been getting 7.7, 8.5 for episode 4. So it really was a poor ending. And I think the ending was quite confusing to people. What actually happened between Ran and Ishmael? And it felt like they'd mixed some of the end of the actual book series with the end of it, and it's a strange. So I think season 1 definitely pretty poor in some respects, but it brings up sort of the question around other adaptations. So obviously we've had Game of Thrones, which started strongly but ended probably quite weakly, and we've got Lord of the Rings films and The Hobbit and the Rings of Power. So how does the Wheel of Time compare to those other shows?
Yeah, well, to answer that question, obviously we're looking at a season that met with a lot of commercial success, and as you said, strong kind of critical praise at the beginning with Game of Thrones, and then kind of people lambasting it towards the end because of not knowing the ending, or changing the ending, or no one knows if they changed the ending, but it just wasn't quite what people perhaps wish for. And then you've got that classic Lord of the Rings, with its how do you adapt something as big, as kind of game changing as the Lord of the Rings, and yet you watch those films now, 25 years on, and they're classics, and they kind of look like they could have been made the same time as the Wheel of Time as well. So yeah, we're still in the middle of Wheel of Time. We've got that kind of beneficial position of not having rushed it and finished it already and being disappointed with it. We've got that still to look forward to. I think it's going to be great. I would say actually watching season 1 again the second time, I enjoyed it more actually than the first time through.
I think actually, it's easy to forget. So Lord of the Rings, commercial and critical success, I think. But it's easy to forget. We were there, right? We were in our 40s. So when Lord of the Rings was released, we were big book fans. And we went to see him in the cinema. It's easy to forget how much noise there was and the changes they made there. But now the changes are made in land. The film's 20 years old. People now, well, they're the films. They're amazing. You should benchmark against them. Things like Tom Bombadil not being in there. You can do a spin-off. Things like how they treated Gandalf, some of his arcs, and so how Aragorn did certain things. So there were changes there, and some of the book fans were really annoyed with that. So, I think it's easy to forget that those other shows and movies had some of these similar challenges. Maybe, as you say, you go back to the season 1, watch it again, and actually now you sort of know what's coming, can enjoy it more a bit.
Yeah, I think I watched the first season again. I having known like how season 2 progressed, and it kind of was a bit more coherent where you're watching it in isolation the first time, but it's not quite so much. Brandwood and Sanderson's kind of weighed in, hasn't he, with this quote, streaming has had a big problem with epic fantasy, and this has me worrying. Rings of Power and the Wheel of Time have not gone as well as I would have hoped. Shadow and Bone lasted only 2 seasons after a very strong first season. Streaming hasn't figured out for epic fantasy yet, says Brandon Sanderson.
He wrote the book. He wrote the last 3 books that he wrote, but he is also an executive producer, actually, not executive, a consulting producer on there. So he's involved as well. So it's interesting to see him sort of having a bit of a negative opinion on him. But no,
yeah, I mean, Brandon Sanderson being vocal about the series kind of works in his favor. I mean, it's going to get 2.8 seasons. You've seen up, and I'd love to see 8 seasons. How they finish it, like he's finished it, is going to kind of bring him to the forefront. And the fact he's involved in the show as well gives him that kind of gravitas, I think, as well.
He's quite an interesting character, Brandon Sanderson, because he's very active on Reddit.
Yeah.
So if like Louis and me are massive fans of the Wheel of Time, you've probably been on the subreddits for the Wheel of Time. And I think he's gone on there a few times and answered fans' questions and even helped people understand some of the mysteries that, that are on there. So he's heavily involved in the fandom. So actually, it's quite interesting to hear his thoughts. I think I've heard him talk about the fact that Egwene killed Rhaena. So that in the Seanchan bit in season 2, where Egwene has the collar around her neck, her sword arm is called Rhaena. She's horrible, and she makes her really breaks Egwene. But Egwene kills her. In the book, she's just left with the leash around her. So the way Egwene gets away, she puts the collar around Rhaena. Brandon's point is that actually that's a fate worse than death for people in the Seanchan. And for actually killing her is, a bit weak, but
Yeah, I just had in Winter's Heart a POV from Bethamin, who's another Saldam, I think ex-Saldam, who kind of recalls in her chapter, as it were, coming in and seeing Rhaena with another Saldam, and they're kind of like vomiting everywhere because they can't get the Idam off their own necks and stuff. So
because in their society, if you become a Demana, your name is stripped from the family record, so it is real put to shame from the Seanchan.
So what are your overall thoughts about the show?
Okay, so I think the data and the reviews suggest that the show's getting better. I think that's an objective fact. I think we can say that. But I think it's also fair to say that no adaptation is perfect. I think there will continue to be ongoing debates about where they change the character arcs or the deviations from the plots that we've seen. They have 8 seasons. They're going to scrunch books together. I think we're at book 4 after season 3, so they're going to have to really start scrunching some of those later books in together. So I guess for this show, what they need to really do is appeal to the non-book fans and really expand the audience in the same way that Game of Thrones did. But I think it's quite good. It's quite clear that the showrunners are listening to fans and listening to feedback and it changing and making it better. So I think that's really, really good. So I think generally for me, I agree. The show is getting better and I hope it's growing its audience. What do you think, Larry?
Yeah, I said earlier, didn't I? I think the show is getting better. We don't know yet if there's a season 4. We hope that there is. We hope there's all 8 seasons as. Yeah, if that's what it's going to be. But it's gaining momentum. That's a good sign that this could carry on. We hope it does. Yeah, and you mentioned it there in your last bit about how you've got to balance that being faithful enough to the excellent source literature that's there, but also bringing in that new audience and delivering something that is utterly watchable and gets people talking. So if I may, our advice to you who maybe know the books and are watching this would be to just kind of embrace it, enjoy it, see it as something slightly different to reading the book, but it's just another turning of the wheel of time. It's someone else's view. Finally, you can always let us know what you think and please do comment below if you've got anything to say about this episode, any of our previous ones, or the series in general. And if you like the content that we're producing, Ollie and I, then please do subscribe.
So, the Brothers of Time think the show is getting better. But what do you think? Feel free to channel your thoughts into the comments below. And if you liked this video, then we think you'll love this one too.